Hello, my friend. Welcome back to the Mindset Check podcast. I'm your host, Misha McKittrick. This is a podcast where we believe that as you take time for a mindset check, you have more power than you think you do. And where we also believe that one feeling can replace thousands of thoughts. That's what we're going to chat about today on the podcast. How are you? How is your Christmas season going? How are things shaking out for you, and how are things feeling? I've been asking this question a lot to people around me, friends, acquaintances, the girl who does my nails, right? Whoever. And I've been receiving a lot of similar answers. There are a lot of people who are feeling a little bit discouraged and a little bit overwhelmed. Or maybe just the fact that I'm not quite ready for Christmas to be here yet. That's what we're going to talk about on the podcast today. Let's jump right in. There's a line from the movie Christmas Vacation when Ellen Griswold says, "I don't know what to say except it's Christmas and we're all in misery." I don't know how many of you are laughing, nodding your head in agreement, or saying, "What are you talking about? Christmas is amazing." There's another line from Charlie Brown Christmas when Charlie Brown says, "I think there must be something wrong with me, Linus. Christmas is coming, but I'm not happy. I don't feel the way I'm supposed to feel." So I'm creating this podcast in hopes that we can address how some of you may be feeling, how I was feeling. And I can kind of tell you that story a little bit, and then also help you figure out how to process and how to move through, and how are we going to come out and make Christmas still feel like an incredible holiday. Christmas really is such a magical season, in my opinion. But here's the thing. We also are taking life, normal life, and then we're piling a whole bunch of extra on top of life. And then we are like, woohoo, get it all done, accomplish it all, feel it all, experience it all. And then, the great big explosion and crescendo of Christmas, and it's amazing. And a lot of times, a lot of those things are really, really fun until we are overwhelmed or until something else is happening. And then it feels debilitating. The first thing I want to start off by recognizing to try to help us to form our perspective around Christmas specifically this year is that Thanksgiving sometimes occurs in a fashion that gives us a very short Christmas season. Okay. So if you're not aware, this is something that you can do to really prepare, to help you really just prepare those expectations around Christmas and what might be able to happen around Christmas. So Thanksgiving occurs anywhere from November 22nd to November 28th. So sometimes we have 5 weeks of Christmas, almost 5 weeks, right? And sometimes, like this year, we have less than 4 weeks because, of course, this year, Thanksgiving occurred on the 28th of November. Does it blow your mind? There are still packages that we've ordered that way early in the season that are still not here. And we say, that's not normal, and we kind of go, gosh, there's so many things that we've normally done by now. And sometimes we have these feelings where we're just we can't get all of it done, right? I mean, the typical Christmas is making sure that gifts for, a wide variety of people in your life are covered. And heaven forbid that we're trying to put intention and meaning into those gifts. That takes extra time for each gift. We, of course, on top of the gifts for everyone in our world, we're playing Santa and all of these beautiful things. We, have the business associates and anything that you have around business that you're also handling in your life. Maybe you're throwing parties. Maybe there's extra, client gifts and different things around business. We have decorating and baking and thinking about others and neighborhood gifts. And, we want to make fun experiences and meaningful moments. And then, like, heaven forbid, we also want to sneak time by the fire with Christmas music, right? Or stories with our family. Whatever those tender and meaningful moments are for you, it's a lot to get a lot done in a short season. So I'm just bringing that up so that you can help yourself, give yourself a little bit of grace and know we've had a really short season. But the thing that I want to share with you the very most today is something that I realized when I went through a lot of discouragement in the last couple of weeks. For me, there was a lot of things mounting. Like, it wasn't even a trifecta, my friend. It was like I don't even know, like a dozenfecta. Is there a word for that? Like, there were so many things on top of the things that were happening, right? There was discouragement that accompanied the things that were happening, right? I had like a big logistical thing happen with business that felt very discouraging, that brought feelings of failure and the thoughts of like, well, what's it all for, right? And then, stepping into my son leaving. And so my son had left to serve a mission for our church. He came back for a little bit. He left again, right in the heat or right in the heart of the time that of the year that he loves the most and that I love having him around the most. And I'm more than happy to like have him be where he's at and do the things that he's desiring to do and that I also am desiring for him. That's really great. But there was probably still a lot of emotion around it, right? And then I had this crazy idea. Hey, let's redo our room. And so we've been redoing an entire room of our house. And on top of that, I ordered some new stools and they came and they weren't the right color. And then they were broken. And then they were, and so there's a lot of actual things that are happening in life on top of the regular Christmas season, like enough to leave you not being patient when you are spending 2 hours on the chat with Hollister. You know what I'm talking about? Where Buddy the Elf's hilarious quip, son of a nutcracker, seems to come up over and over. And for me, all of this discouragement that I went through was also affecting me physically. So I had like this kink in my neck. I couldn't turn my head the right way. I hope you're laughing because you understand, like, literally that this is what happens, And then I got sick. I actually got sick twice within like a month's time. And I'm telling you, that is so extremely rare for me. Like, I am pretty solid. Like, I can get sick like maybe once a year, if that, and it's crazy that when we have a lot that we are moving through or working through, that our body can say, okay, we're giving out. We need some rest. So that for me was a really big hiccup and overwhelm. And I think it brought me into this space of really feeling how much discouragement many people feel like right now, especially during a short Christmas season when we seem to think we should still be doing all of the things that we do in previous years, right? Without even realizing, hey, you have a week less of Christmas. That's wild. What are the things that are not essential, right? What are the things that we can kind of cut out and focus on the things that are necessary? So while I was in these feelings, really where I was experiencing, depending on the day, what it was, if it was overwhelm or if it was discouragement or whatever it was that I was really kind of going through during this, couple of week period, I had this realization. And it's actually so easy. It's so simple that you're going to go, yeah, Mish, we know. Maybe, I don't know. It really is pretty simple, but I think that when we state what it is, it helps us to move. So a lot of times we talk about being in low feelings and shifting into high feelings, right? So we can be in anger or anxiety or overwhelm or whatever. and we can shift into a high feeling by participating in an activity or a meditation or lots of different things in life that can bring us into those high feelings. And the thing that felt most helpful to me during this little hiccup of time was not moving from low to high. It was moving from something low to the next level up. Okay? So messages of maybe courage or willingness or hope. Those were the messages that felt like I could resonate the most with. And before even trying to shift or move into other feelings, really taking the time to acknowledge what we are feeling. I think that's such an important step that often gets skipped. In the world, we just kind of feel like we should shift and put on a smiling face and all of this business, right? Which is really not healthy. It creates so much more anxiety when we don't allow ourselves the time and the space to process the things that we actually are feeling. So it really helps to acknowledge your negative feelings, whatever it is that's going on. If possible, talk about them, because that also helps release those negative emotions, or at least journal them, write them out, let the feelings really be there, let them come up without suppressing them, breathing through them. The trick is sometimes when you're in that low, sometimes we really need a voice to remind us, hey, let's do a little bit of breath work around this. Hey, let's do a little bit of self-care. Hey, let's notice the things that are actually giving you energy and what's actually draining the energy on top of the way that you are feeling, right? So we're establishing that we're already at a point where we're experiencing things where we need to just let emotions move through us. But inside of that, we're also acknowledging, am I having the destructive thoughts? Because our thoughts seem to snowball, right? It's not even that they seem to. They logistically, scientifically snowball. So very often if we're having a low thought, it attracts the next low thought within 17 seconds. And all of a sudden that's a part of us too. That's why when I had, the business hiccup, it kind of felt like more and more thoughts kept coming. Like, well, what's it all for? And am I even making a difference? And kind of, things like that, where you can just really let yourself kind of go down those paths. That's when the alarm bells need to go off, because that isn't helpful. That's destructive, right? That's not allowing yourself just to feel the feelings. That's allowing yourself to feel the feelings and more. So that's at the point where we really need to slow down. My favorite is letting our body somatically help us, right? Like breath work for me is like getting in there, doing some breath work, and then really taking the time for self-care, which is why you also saw a little bit of hiccup in the podcast. Because I just needed that time. And when we are recognizing what gives us energy and what is it that's draining our energy, that's a really important thing to be inside of it. But then going back to after we're letting our feelings process, after we're, acknowledging how we feel, we are releasing the emotion around that, we're letting those things go, then we shift our attention to come into something else, right? And that's the shifting part. So that's the part that was so great. And the messages that mattered to me, that helped me move up a little bit, maybe not into full joy and happiness, or not into full like overflowing and exploding love. The messages that actually mattered to me when I was really, really struggling were messages, like I said, of courage and hope, right? These messages like it still changes you. No matter what, the work that you've done still changes you. No matter what, the effort that you're putting into Christmas still allows you to feel the magic of the season. It still allows you to feel love for that person that you're serving or getting gifts for, or whatever it is that you're doing. As long as we are doing it in that energy, right? It still changes you. That was a really healing message. And then to remember what I was actually placing as a priority. I was also really helping someone who was struggling. and that is a number one. What are we even doing, right? The most important things really are happening. And I think that that's a very comforting message. And then the messages of you can do this, of courage, to remind myself to listen to my heart and to move forward with intention. So I'm not sure if those messages land the same for you, if you're experiencing a little bit of, overwhelm or any type of low feelings this season. Maybe take those messages and apply them to your heart. There's a Christmas story called Why Christmas Trees Aren't Perfect. It talks about a kingdom that is surrounded by a forest, and in the forest, all of the trees know that one tree will be chosen to accompany the queen back to the palace, and to be lit, and for everyone to celebrate and dance around and to really provide a lot of joy for the season. And these trees know this, and so they try their very best to form their branches perfectly and really beautifully so that they will be the one chosen on Christmas. But then there are things that happen to this one pine in particular that is trying its best to grow in a way that is very appealing so that it can be picked by the queen. There's a night where a rabbit is being chased by some wolves and finds protection inside of the branches. But of course the tree gives a little bit, right? The branches are rearranged and can't grow quite properly when they're moved like that, right? Or a time when a wren was caught in a powerful blizzard and found safety inside of the tree's branches. But the pine then had difficulty rearranging the branches, and there would be a gap where that wren was forevermore. And then there was another really huge storm, and there was a small fawn that had wandered from its mother, and blinded by the snow, it inches into the evergreen, seeking a break from the wind. And as the pine did this and allowed this entry for this little fawn to be protected, some of the branches broke. There was, some obvious disfiguring of the tree that remained after the fawn left. With pine gum oozing from branches that had broken, the tree was so sad, feeling like it could never hope for the honor of being chosen for the great celebration of the kingdom. Lost in despair, this little pine didn't see the queen coming into the forest. As the queen's royal sleigh passed through the forest, her eyes scanned the evergreens, and when she saw this little pine, a flush of anger filled her, and she thought, what right had a tree with such defects to be in the royal forest? And she made a note that she would have a woodsman come and dispose of it later. As they passed the tree, the queen stopped and actually glances back at the tree. And as she gazed at it, she noticed the tracks of small animals that had found shelter under it and a downy feather within its branches where a bird had nested. And she studied the gaping hole in its side and its wind-whipped trunk, and understanding filled her heart. This one, she said. And all of the attendants gasped, and to the astonishment of the forest, this little pine was born to be the great hall, and everyone who danced and sang around it said it was the finest Christmas tree ever, for in their looking at its gnarled and worn branches, many saw the protecting arm of their father, others the comforting touch of their mother, and some, as did the queen, saw the love of Christ expressed on earth. So if you walk among the evergreens today, you will find, along with rabbits, birds, and other happy living things, drooped branches providing cover, gaps offering nesting places, forms bent from wrestling winter winds. For as have many of us, the trees have learned that the scars suffered for the sake of others make one beautiful in the eyes of God. I love this Christmas story so much for obvious reasons. When we see that the Christmas tree isn't perfect, we also look at our own selves and see why we aren't perfect, maybe why we weren't able to show up in a way that we hoped we would have been able to. And we see the parts of us that sacrificed for things that were more important. So in addition to checking into messages that actually resonate and lift us up, like the important part is that we are taking a step higher and higher and higher, even if it's difficult to check into the very highest feelings of those high-flying feelings, right? And it's really important to remember that one feeling that's a little bit better than the feeling that you were feeling can replace thousands of thoughts. Isn't that incredible to think about? If you can check into one feeling, it automatically overrides so much brain space that was being occupied. Do your best to not let the craziness of this month get to you. Do your best to still allow this season to reign with joy in your heart. There was a moment this last week where I was preparing a package for my son who is away and will be away from us on Christmas, right? This son who left for a mission. And one of the things that I did is I went through a lot of Christmas pictures of Christmases, of past Christmases that he has experienced. And I printed a lot of those pictures so that at least he would have the memories of past Christmases, no matter how this Christmas goes for him, right? That he would be able to reflect. And as I went to bed that night, I literally had visions of sugar plums dancing in my head, right? I had such an overflowing heart that I was able to offer him such abundant scenes to reflect on. And, you know, my life felt so full at that moment. And it was a moment where I was able to check into a lot of the beauty that is in my life. So whatever is happening for you this season, remember to check into feelings and things that can help lift you, that can help replace thousands of thoughts. Check into small moments of joy or huge moments of joy, right? Don't let the craziness of this month and this year in particular get to you. Take a breath and dance. Take a breath and sit and read a quiet story with your children, or take a breath and write a very thoughtful Christmas note to someone so that you can experience a feeling that replaces thousands of thoughts. I hope that you can see that by experiencing something just a little bit better, and then a little bit better, and then a little bit better is what can also help you move up into better feeling moments, days, and an entire season. And in the words of Buddy the Elf, remember, the best way to spread Christmas cheer is singing loud for all to hear. I hope that you can see that by checking into these feelings, you have so much power. I hope you loved today's podcast. Make sure that you are subscribed to the Mindset Check podcast so that you don't miss future episodes. I want to leave you with one final quote from Janice Matire. She said, "Christmas is not as much about opening our presents as opening our hearts." Until next time, my friend.